get very frightening in my mind, and that's the beginning of a reset. One of these big banks, the Western banks, fails to deliver, creates a daisy chain of defaults and of forfeitures and bankruptcies and counterparty risk and credit default swaps and like bringing in AIG into the moment again, and boom.
In the absolute end game, you could see gold at $10 an ounce offered on COMEX and no bids, and $100,000 bid in the cash markets, but no offers. That we would get to a point where no one would release gold, no one would release silver for any fiat price, because, fiat being viewed as nothing.
All it needs to do is return to mean. If it returns to mean, demand for this asset class increases fourfold. One can only guess what a fourfold increase in demand would do to a commodity where increases in supply are extremely limited. And that's precisely what I think is going to happen and continue to happen.
Join our WhatsApp channel for real-time updates, breaking news, and expert predictions on gold, silver, and financial markets. Link in the description or pinned comment. Stay ahead of the curve. Don't miss out.
My thought process with gold and silver, the market is so much smaller. It's probably not even a tenth of the gold market. I've all along called silver the fuse to the golden nuclear bomb. You cannot have silver go into a default status and gold ignore it. I mean, it would immediately be followed by the gold market. You'd have buyers left and right. And I mean, we're at the point now. Let me just talk about inflate or die, Richard Russell's, famous saying. From a debt standpoint, because it's a Ponzi scheme, you have to continually create more debt to feed the Ponzi monster. If you don't feed the debt, then the debt collapses. So they're going to feed the debt. But when you feed the debt, what you're doing is you're expanding the money supply. So if money supply is going up 5%, 7%, 10, 11% per year, yet gold and silver production is static or slightly declining. What's happening is, it's the classic, too many dollars chasing too few assets. And it's that way, it's that way system wide, because GDPs are only growing worldwide at 2%? But yet money supplies are double, triple, quadruple that just to keep that 2% growth. So it's a dangerous situation. And like you said, when gold blows, confidence breaks, and that will literally blow up the entire derivatives complex across the board, which includes all sorts of commodities, all sorts of sovereign treasuries, equity markets across the world. The derivatives market gets taken down when gold becomes unavailable, to deliver. I have said that ultimately, when all is said and done, there is going to be a failure to deliver on COMEX for both gold and silver. And I think it will start with silver. I've said that all along. And now, now that you've got, the demand that we've seen out of China, out of India, out of just the solar industry alone, it literally eats up all of the global supply.
It used to take 2 to 3 days. Now it takes 4 to 8 weeks. And it's not just from the Bank of England vaults. Evidently, it's from all sorts of vaults all throughout the LBMA network. And what it tells you is that they don't have the gold to make deliveries. It's not taking that long to refine them. It means if they have to refine them, they don't have the gold. And that means the gold that they show that they have is not for sale. No one's getting rid of it. And if they don't have the gold, how close are we to some sort of an event? Where, I think in London, the numbers that if I remember, David Jensen talked about, they trade twice global annual mine supply per day, every day. In silver, it's 3.5 times annual global mine supply per day. And to his numbers, 90+% of all of these trades are paper naked trades. Now, the theory is that everyone's worried about a 10% import tariff on gold, and more so than silver. The argument against silver is that we're in a supply deficit here in the States, so he won't do it because he has to import it. Don't know if that's true or not, but it would make sense. With gold, on the other hand, you have, I don't know, I haven't looked lately. There's a guy on Twitter that does a great job of showing the rehypothecation of gold, but it was always in the neighborhood of 1,500% or higher. I mean, that's just conservative. It's probably much higher than that. But that means that the contracts are sold over and over and over and over and over again. 15 people have the same contract thinking they have their own contract is what that would basically mean. And cash settlement is very, very close at that rate. I was talking to a guy the other day at dinner in my community, and he is involved in aluminum and had a force majeure moment where his manufacturing business needs lots of aluminum, had contracts they couldn't deliver, they cash settled. It's force majeure. That's what we're setting up for here. And these players are saying, man, I got all these contracts. And when you have a contract, if I go short and you go long, well, most people just cash settle. Most people like Miles Franklin, 2 bottles of water here. This is 5,000 ounces of gold in my warehouse, 5,000 on COMEX. I sell here. I own physically here. If the price in my warehouse drops by $100, I'm down $500,000 in gold, but I went up 500,000 on what I sold short. I'm not looking to take delivery. I have it covered. A lot of the people are just speculating the way they do in buying stocks or going to the casino, and others are manipulating the market. And they manipulate it by naked shorting because they got massive, massive checkbooks. And maybe they're even being told by the Western elite, go ahead and do this for us, would you? Thank you. And by doing such, remember, you as the long have the right to say, no. I'll stand for delivery, thank you. And that's what we saw in January. Massive deliveries, right? So what if everyone says, I see you guys are screwed. Delivery, please. Now, isn't that what the Hunt brothers did? Sure is. Hunt brothers saw the same exact things, and the exchange changed the rules on them. Said you can go long just 1 million contracts or so. You can go short as much as you want. Please, thank you. I mean, stupidity. But the point of it is that, yes, that is the rumor. But I would look much past that and say what you see are these claims, these promises of delivery in London. You got a whole big vault full of IOUs and a little bit of gold. And I've been saying forever, and maybe this is it. You know, the little boy who cried wolf, here I am. One of these days, wolf will come, and maybe this is it. Maybe they all say, we got him cornered, y'all. Let's stand for delivery and watch what happens. And that's what they're doing. They're getting it home preemptively in case there are tariffs because they know they cannot come up with the gold. But lo and behold, having the same problem in London with these delivery delays. So, you can only manipulate a market over a very long period of time by pushing it in the direction that it is going. They are trying to hold back the global demand of powers that are as challenging as us, especially when you combine them all together.
Narrative, which is to say the preeminent buyers of gold in the last 3.5 years haven't in fact been Americans concerned about the deterioration of their savings, but rather foreign governments who object to two things: the weaponization of the US dollar and the weaponization of the SWIFT banking system, which is to say the US government's attempt to use the US dollar to enforce its policy prerogatives elsewhere. Other countries object to that. And two, a return to that arithmetic. If you're China and you have $3 trillion in US treasuries, and you look at being paid 4.5% in a currency where the purchasing power is declining by 7.5%, it seems like a lousy deal, particularly when that's compared and contrasted with selling your U.S. treasuries and using the money to make investments in your own economy. The Chinese, of course, have done both, made investments in their own economy and bought gold. And I think what you're seeing there is the hegemony of the U.S. dollar challenged, often in favor of gold. One final piece of arithmetic, Julia, which we talked about 3 months ago, but some of your listeners won't have had the good sense to listen to us 3 months ago. That is this. Gold is really, really, really underowned historically. JP Morgan Chase suggests that the market share of precious metals and precious metals related securities is less than 0.5% of total savings and investment assets in the United States. In other words, an infinitesimal market share. The 4-decade mean market share is estimated by JP Morgan Chase to be 2%. So gold doesn't have to win the war against the US dollar. Gold doesn't have to demolish the treasury markets like some gold bugs suggest. All it needs to do is return to mean. If it returns to mean, demand for this asset class increases fourfold. One can only guess what a fourfold increase in demand would do to a commodity where increases in supply are extremely limited. And that's precisely what I think is going to happen and continue to happen. Go from 2,700 to 3,000. I own gold because I'm afraid it's going to go to 9,000 or 10,000.
Yeah.
Why do I say that? The last time that we had sustained deterioration in the purchasing power of the US dollar was the decade of the 1970s. In that period, 1970 to 1980, back to arithmetic, according to the Office of Management and Budget, the US dollar lost in excess of 75% of its purchasing power, which is to say at the beginning of the decade, what was $1,000 worth of goods and services, by the end of the decade would have cost you $4,000 to buy. During that period, the gold price went from $35, admittedly a price-controlled $35, to $800